right. Well, Kyle, welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you on. And I think we ran into each other I think it was at the Temple Lights.
Yeah.
And saw you there. And have you been moving around? Or you were in Arizona? You've been moving around a little bit, right?
Yeah, I've been moving a lot. So I think in the last 5 years, we've probably moved 5 times. But in the last year, we were in St. George, and then my wife moved to Gilbert. I moved down to Sierra Vista, Arizona, for an Army training.
Okay, yeah.
And then we were just kind of traveling back and forth between there. And now we're with my parents in Gilbert until I start my master's program.
Okay. When did you do Army training? Was that kind of a recent decision, or have you been doing that and that's why the travel?
So I've been in the Army since January of 2021. This training was a longer 4-month training.
Okay.
Specifically, it's called Bullock Basic Officer Leadership Course.
Okay.
So every officer in the Army goes through an initial training to learn their job, to learn their what they call an MOS.
Yeah. Okay. And what is MOS?
I don't even know what it stands for. In the Army, you have
all
a
the terms.
billion acronyms, and nobody knows what any of them mean. But it's just your specific job. So when I first started in the Army, I knew absolutely nothing. Are you familiar with how the Army structure works at all?
Not at all.
Okay.
Zero.
Dude, this blew my mind because I really in my mind, you would start anybody would just start in the Army as a private. And then you would just keep on working until you were a general. And that's not how it works at all. So basically there are 2 tiers of ranks in the Army.
Oh, okay.
There's enlisted ranks and then there's officer ranks. And you don't just promote into an officer rank. All officers technically outrank all enlisted.
Interesting.
But you don't just climb the ranks into an officer rank. You have there's a specific pipeline for officers.
Is that just because it's a different commitment level or something?
It's mostly what you are focused on when it comes to a mission. So
Okay.
officers, they plan missions and they supervise, or they plan training and supervise training. The enlisted are the ones that actually do the skill.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm intelligence. So, and I'm going into chaplaincy. So as an intelligence officer, I really don't do any intelligence work per se. I'm not the one collecting intelligence. I'm not the one organizing intelligence. All I do is I manage the enlisted, help them to do their job, supervise them in doing their job, and then I brief the commander on what they need to know.
And is that within being a chaplain, or is that within just being an officer?
That's with being an officer in general.
Okay.
So officers always plan and supervise, and then enlisted always carry out the job. When you get to a higher rank in the enlisted, or higher ranks in the enlisted program, you start to kind of do a little bit more of the planning and supervising. So once you're an E5, the 5th rank in the enlisted, you become what's called an NCO, a non-commissioned officer.
Okay.
And that's when you kind of start working with an officer to plan and supervise, and also just kind of manage people.
Yeah. Can you move at that point to the officer pipeline? Is it kind of, you can transfer over or not really?
Yeah, at any point you can.
Okay.
But they kind of make it work. The pay system is wild too, to kind of make that work. Because people will get to, a staff sergeant, which is the 6th rank, or and then they'll decide to switch over to officer, and sometimes they'll even take a little bit of a pay cut in the beginning, because the lowest ranked officer, they're making okay money, but it's not the highest enlisted are gonna make, which makes sense. You can go 20 years in the enlisted program and you'll be climbed the enlisted ranks. Yeah. So they sometimes if you're that high and you go the officer route, you'll take a temporary pay cut. but then like the earning potential
Is a lot higher.
is a lot higher,
Oh,
especially when it comes to retirement. Like,
Interesting.
yeah.
I wonder why that is. Let me check something real quick with this camera. I just realized something. So we had you move, make sure we're...
Yeah, I was gonna say. That's better.
Just because it's really finicky on the manual. Perfect. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
It's gonna make me be OCD the entire podcast. Okay, so that makes sense. So really, it's like, I wonder too, is it because enlisted makes me think like that's people who are like, oh, I'm going in for a 4-year stint, and when my contract's up, then maybe I'll decide to keep going, maybe not. Is it different with being an officer? It's kind of like, oh, I'm planning on climbing the ranks and continuing, or is it not like that at all?
Yeah, so officers are kind of interesting because technically you have a commitment, but it's based on what they pay you for. So, like, the Army paid for my schooling, and like some stuff additional to that. So my commitment to them is for that payment is 6 years in the National Guard.
Gotcha.
But really, like,
and what does that mean exactly? Like, what does that entail, being in the National Guard? Because I think people hear that, we're like, oh yeah, I'm in the Army and I've enlisted, or I have a contract period, they're paying for my school, but I'm in the National Guard. And I've always been like, yeah, I know the National Guard does stuff, but I'm like, what does that really encompass?
Yeah, okay. So you have active duty.
Yeah.
Where they're full-time Army.
Yeah.
They're always doing Army stuff. And then you have 2 reserve components. So these are 2 separate components that work 1 weekend a month and then 2 weeks in the summer.
Okay.
So you have the reserves, which is like a federal reserve program. So they're still under the federal government, but they're only part-time.
Gotcha.
And then you have the National Guard, which is under the state. So technically, like, my commander-in-chief, I'm in the Idaho National Guard. My commander-in-chief is the Idaho governor.
Okay.
So those are kind of the different components. Now, like, the National Guard can be federalized at any point, and they will be for, like, deployments and stuff.
Yeah.
But for a normal year, like, you're just under the state.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's, like, super part-time, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year, or out of the summer. And then, like, the Army trainings that you have to go to here and there as well.
Gotcha. So if he calls you up, or like calls, he's probably not calling you directly, but
Yeah.
right.
Right.
There's like a group chat. He's like,
Yeah. Dude.
yo, pull up. We got a conflict. So, but if the National Guard's enacted in Idaho for whatever reason,
Yeah.
like, would you have to be like, okay, I got to go do my thing? Or is it kind of like you've got a set time, you have to do your thing, and that's when you're there?
Yeah. So the way it's kind of weird because you have a deployment cycle. So every 5 years you can deploy.
Yeah.
Like, your unit is set to deploy every 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
If there's nothing going on where they will need you, then it just kind of skips over you, and you, like, go another 5 years. But that's, like, the normal deployment cycle.
Mm.
Outside of the normal deployment cycle, you'll have events that require the National Guard to get activated. So in 2020, there was a lot of National Guard activated to help with, like, the COVID stuff.
Right.
Or with riot control and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So in those situations, the National Guard will just get activated kind of temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's always just for a set period of time, like, hey, we need to handle this situation. And they can be activated either by the state or the federal government, just depending on where the needs are at.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And can you be deployed to other states too, or generally not really?
Yeah. So I know a couple of years ago, there were a few people in my unit that were. It's not technically like a deployment per se,
right,
but like a mobilization.
Yeah.
To
I guess
DC.
deployment sounds a little like,
Yeah.
hey, we're going to Iran or something.
Yeah. Nothing
Probably
like
shouldn't
that.
say that right now. I'm joking about
Dude, crazy stuff is happening right now.
Yeah.
It's wild. But at any point you can get called. Like, it's not as common for you to get called to, like, another state, but I know for a while we were supporting like ICE in Arizona. My friend in Utah was helping out in California. So it every now and then, but it's not as common.
Okay, so it just depends on the circumstance, the situation.
Yeah.
And do they just buzz you or something? Like, how do you know when you're supposed, or how do they let you know?
It can be either like it can be like pretty far in advance, or it can be pretty sudden. So, you know, for anything like the DC mobilization, I want to say that was like a couple weeks notice. So they basically just like, and in those situations, they usually get volunteers. So it's not like you are going, but if they can help it, anytime that they can help it, if it's that short of a time frame, they're asking for volunteers. And they're usually just like kind of putting these units together from like 2 people here, 2 people there, 2 people here, and just like assembling this team.
Yeah. What do they like? Do you have a uniform and it's like you strap the uniform on and go, or what do they like? Even if you're a volunteer, what do they give you?
So, well, you're volunteering, but everybody's already in the National Guard. So we wear the same uniform as like active duty all the time. You have like your fatigues, your camo, basically.
Okay.
That's what I wear. So like, when I go to drill that one weekend a month, I'm wearing a camo uniform.
Okay.
And basically you'll just like you'll bring that and all of the other like gear that they issue you to like a mobilization like that.
Yeah.
And then maybe just a couple of your own personal items.
Right. How do you like it thus far?
Yeah.
You enjoyed it?
It is good. So I started in the Utah National Guard. And I was a cadet there while I was at BYU. And that was pretty interesting because as a cadet, like you're kind of just shadowing the commander.
Right.
And I didn't love either of my first commanders, and my second commander definitely didn't love me. So that made it really hard. But I commissioned when I became an officer.
Yeah.
I commissioned into the Idaho National Guard. And that has been my home. Like, I love the Idaho National Guard.
Yeah.
And
Just different culture or just different, what makes it different? Nicer people?
yeah, I think, so it was, the only thing that I didn't love about the Utah Guard was my commanders. And my first one was just really lax. Like, this guy was way too chill. Like, everything was like just planned last minute, and everybody was confused all the time. He would just do these random things like that that didn't really make sense, and a lot of people were upset.
Yeah.
Then we got a new commander. And she came in and she was like a 180 flip.
Yeah.
Like, so hardcore. She's a professor.
Oh, okay.
And like, dude, if you see her rate my professor ratings, like you'll understand what kind of commander she was. She's just a micromanager.
Oh, okay.
Always on top of you, always wanting things to be done her way, and it made it really hard. So when I first got into the Army, it was a whole new world.
Right.
And I didn't understand, all of this stuff that went into the culture and went into, just like even the most simple things. And it would get me in trouble a decent amount. But, I pride myself on working hard to be good at whatever I do. So, what really made me mad was like I was doing all of the things that I needed to do to be an objectively good soldier, because everything in the Army, especially active duty, is merit based. So like when you're a cadet, you're getting ranked. By the time you're commissioning, you're getting ranked against literally every other cadet in the entire nation.
Right.
based on like your college GPA, your leadership scores, your cadre assessments, your training, basically assessment.
Yeah.
And when it came time for me to commission, I was trying to commission into the Utah Guard.
Right.
And like all of that just got thrown out the window. You know, I ended up like really trying hard to do well in all of those things. My score was in the top 1% of cadets in the nation, and it didn't matter. Like I was the top cadet in Utah.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. I didn't even get interviewed
Really.
for a position because my commander didn't like me.
Right. So it's a lot of it's based off of, you know, the opinion of other people.
Well, important people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Not just other cadets.
Yeah. No, she had my whole world in her hands,
Yeah.
you know, and
Oof, that sucks.
that it works out when, you know, you care about the person and they care about you. But when you're not seeing eye to eye, I think that's one of the hardest things for soldiers to do, because their whole world is the Army. And like that brought me an insane amount of stress in the National Guard, where I was only having to work once a month. But to think about what active duty soldiers have to go through if they have like a toxic leader.
Right.
It's one of the biggest, like my biggest passions in deciding to become a chaplain is looking at the amount of depression and suicide in soldiers.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, a lot of that is due to this feeling stuck. Because in a lot of ways, it doesn't feel like your life is under your control. The right leaders can change that. But it's so hierarchical, and it's so there's so much power placed in these leaders that it can be really difficult.
Yeah, that would be hard. I mean, it's the hard part too is it's just natural for people when they get into a leadership position to kind of throttle that power a little too much.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying any of like I'm sure it happens, and it happens in everything, right? It's not just in the military. I'm sure it happens in business, happens everywhere. But yeah, the hard part too is it almost makes it not so much about like doing the job, but like trying to just climb the ranks strategically. Oh, I gotta cozy up to this person, and I gotta like maybe do this a certain way because they're gonna like it that way. You know what I'm saying? It makes it less about the job and doing a good job, and more about trying to network your way through the ranks, and it'd be tough.
Well, to me, it kind of changes the definition of what the job is. Like a lot of people will complain about like the politicalness of the military.
For sure.
I mean, just the world in general.
Yeah.
But you come to realize like that is the game. Like there's no way that it can't be the game.
Right.
So reading like the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But you realize like this is how the world operates, and you can't just, I mean, you can choose to not play the game, but when you do that, you're sacrificing the ability to do a lot of things that you want to do.
Right. So
at the end of the day, you know, I realized that I should have played the game differently. Everything worked out for the best. I'm so glad that I'm in Idaho. And I think that's how things kind of were meant to play out and how they would have played out. But you start to realize that, part of the job description is being able to do these political things.
Right.
And just know the right things to say and know the right people to help you grow. Because like you said, like it's not just the military, it's anything in life.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's tough because it's, you know, in some ways too, like, so, because I worked for the church briefly, like in the like church organization, and no hate on, you know, the faith side of it's fine. I don't, whatever, right? They do their thing. The doctrine's great. But within like the actual work environment, it's very corporately structured, right?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have your directors, and above that you have a director, and they have a lot of directors, and yeah, I think in any kind of hierarchical arrangement, people are trying to look and see like, oh, how do I stand out, and how do I climb the ladder, and oh, we've been here. Like part of it too is I think when you're in a system like that for so long, you kind of almost have to care less about the tasks and more about the how is this going to benefit, moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think for anybody who is kind of a free thinking, do the right thing type of individual, like it's very hard to want to fit into that system.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I want to do a good job. I want to do right by the people I'm surrounded by. I want to like do the best job possible. Even if it doesn't necessarily gain me anything or reach this certain status, like I want to do what's right, Yeah. I'm not saying other people don't want to do what's right, but doing what's right doesn't always necessarily equate to, climbing that ladder. And I think that's the hard pill to swallow. But yeah, I remember working there and I was just like, man, I struggle to try and do that. Cause I was like, I don't really care about that. I want to serve these people. I want to do this thing. But then people don't necessarily see it eye to eye, and you're like, how do you not see it that way? Like, it's got to be that. But yeah, man, it's a crazy system.
I think, yeah, you realize, well, when you're in like a system,
Mm-hmm.
and you're realizing that like there's just something in you. I noticed like people immediately start hating the game, and they think it's the game that they hate.
Yeah.
Because it's a game. But I think for the most part, people do that when they're just not in the right place.
Yeah.
Like when I did sales, granted that it wasn't like this hierarchy thing, but there's definitely a game to be played in sales. Sure. And I could be really good at it, but it didn't matter. Like nothing could make me love that.
Yeah.
And you start to realize that like nothing will make you love it because it's just not where you're meant to be in life.
Yeah.
But once you are where you're supposed to be in life, like you start to be willing to play the game. And like
yeah.
I realized too that there's a couple different ways to play it. Like with talking about like Robert Greene's like 48 Laws of Power.
Sure.
He takes like a very like sinister approach to it. Have you read it, by the way?
Yeah.
So everything is like conniving and like very cunning. But if you took like the first law, for example, it's like never outshine the master.
Right.
Basically saying like you never want to make the person that's above you feel less than they are.
Foolish
like,
and yeah.
You just want to make them seem great. And a lot of people, the way he kind of presents it is like you got to hold back sometimes. Sometimes you don't want to show your full power because that can make your master feel insecure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a deeper role. There's like a deeper message that is like you should be aligned to your master's will. Kind of like how Christ was aligned to God's will.
Right.
Like if you can't align yourself to your master's will, then you're just not in the right place.
Yeah.
But if you can, like your master's not going to feel insecure about anything because you're perfectly aligned with their will. Everything you want is what they want. And you can only want what's good for them.
Right.
So
it's kind of like, why are you servicing a purpose that doesn't fit what you really believe?
Yeah. So I think there are definitely different ways to understand and to play the game, but at the end of the day, it's never going to feel good unless you're where you're supposed to be, where you're meant to be.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with that because it's very, And a lot of it too, what you're saying is it boils down to understanding how people work, you know, because that's like, because even in the like in your military role, it may not be that what you guys are working on is the wrong thing. Like their approach just might not be the right fit, and it's like, hey, this is not the right place for me. Like I'm a better fit somewhere else. So I think you're right. I think that is the primary thing, because yeah, a lot of people get kind of bitter at the system that's played. Or they get bitter at like how people handle things or how people communicate, but at the same time it's like, well, that is how people work.
Yeah.
And just being bitter at it doesn't solve the problem either.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So explain to me a little bit more about being a chaplain, because I have a guy I'm friends with. He's older. I won't say really old, that's kind of offensive, but he's older. A really nice guy. But I believe him and his wife are like the first LDS chaplains at Georgetown Prep or Georgetown College or something like that. I think it's in Washington or Virginia.
Yeah.
It's Virginia. And honestly, they told me that, and I was like, I have no idea what that means. I just knew they were like, he was a religious teacher. You know, that was his thing. And so that was, you know, the role he played. And I was like, oh, okay. So when you said you were wanting to go as a chaplain, I was like, interesting. I don't really know exactly what that means. So explain that a little bit more to me.
Yeah. So the easiest way to explain chaplaincy is actually kind of the way it's easily explained by the chaplaincy program that BYU has. Okay. So that's the program that I'm going through. Most chaplains will just get a theology degree, but BYU split it up into kind of the main functions of what a chaplain does. So it's a third theology classes, a third social work classes, and a third marriage and family counseling.
Interesting.
And that's kind of how our job breaks up. It's like we're a spiritual mentor, but it's applied faith.
Right.
So when soldiers are going through something like really difficult, and they need somebody to talk to, like, but they specifically want a faith mentor, they're usually looking to a chaplain.
Interesting.
We're going to be the ones that are talking to people when they're getting divorces. We're going to be the ones that are notifying families when somebody dies. Basically any like really, really big life event, chaplains are a part of that. The other kind of interesting thing about chaplains is they're mandatory non-reporters. So if anybody confesses anything to you, you cannot tell anybody, which can be crazy sometimes.
Yeah,
like people can literally confess the most heinous thing in the world, and you could not report them.
Yeah.
So that makes it easier for chaplains to kind of
do their job.
Do their job and to, but I think that's really interesting because, I mean, people are always getting on church leaders for that. Like, you knew, and like, it's a big thing for churches.
You knew about this child abuse and you just let it continue.
Yeah. But, I think, I can't think of a church that hasn't changed their stance, you know, where all like clergymen are basically mandatory reporters, but the Army still hasn't changed its stance. So chaplains are still.
Well, it's the same reason, like, they don't, at least in like the LDS church, they don't usually have police officers serving a bishopric type or, you know, clergy type position, to put it in a, you know, more Christian sense, because that would be such a conflict, you know. But yeah, I don't know why. I mean, it makes sense. I think people get really hung up on that. Yeah. But it's like, that's been a thing for forever. The non-report thing.
Yeah. I didn't even know that was a thing with like police officers. And
I think they try to avoid it. I mean, I'm sure like if there's some branch in the middle of nowhere and he's like the town sheriff and also the only spiritual leader, like I'm sure they're like, well, hopefully you don't have any conflicts going on, but if you need to, you know, you can do your both jobs at the same time. But outside that, I think they try to avoid it.
That's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they don't want to like some guy who's like, oh man, I gotta arrest this guy now.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, but there's been a lot of kind of upset around that. So what kind of led you to wanting to do that specifically? I know you mentioned seeing some of the mental health and depression type challenges within the Army. Was that the only reason?
everything that I've done with the Army has been like just a calling. So whether it was joining the Army, and I'll tell anybody that is thinking about joining the Army, like it's not worth it unless you feel like it's a calling.
Yeah.
But after I was in the Army for a while as a cadet and I was kind of choosing my MOS, I don't know what it was that kind of made me think about, you know, what job I wanted, especially like there's no real, as a kid, like you're never gonna, like in the church, like you're never gonna think in the future like I'm gonna be a preacher, because like they don't have that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're not like dressing up as a chaplain for like kindergarten career day or anything.
yeah. So it really just came down to like, what are the things that I really enjoy
Yeah.
talking to people about? And sometimes that kind of like I realize that it is like the perfect blend of everything I'm interested in. So theology, philosophy, but also like psychology,
Yeah.
and I mean just like social welfare is like all of those things are intriguing to me, just to think about like what kind of impact I can make. And so, you know, growing up, like those were the things that I enjoyed talking, like largely I debated them a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I intelligence was like a pretty close second, and that's why I'm doing that right now, because I just like working with people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it was just that feeling like this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's you bring up psychology because I'm curious your opinion on this actually, because you mentioned in the BYU program that you're in, like it's a third, is psychology one of those things, or is it not really in that mix?
Yeah, so social work is like, it's largely psychology classes.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's like counseling and like clinical psychology basically. So all of those classes are essentially like psychology courses.
Yeah. What I kind of like from the chaplain perspective, from what you're saying, these programs, it almost feels a little more action oriented, because sometimes I find like talking to people who've gone to like therapists or psychologists, sometimes they're like, they tell me about their experience and it's very, we're almost dissecting the why, but never like, here's what to do next.
Yeah.
You know? And it almost sounds like being a chaplain is a little more like, I'm here to be your spiritual guide. You're like a leader, someone you can turn to, share things. But I can also kind of advise you and help you find direction, is what it sounds like. Is that true?
Yeah, for sure. It's super action oriented because it has to be. Like you had, like, these people have specific roles that they have to go and be able to perform. I didn't realize like how valuable having a like a spiritual grounding was until I was in basic training. And like in basic training, dude, I was like clinging to my Book of Mormon, to my scriptures. Like,
Why is that? Just because the intensity, or just like the environment?
it's like, yeah, you're just, so especially for the first 3 weeks, like basic training is kind of broken into phases. In the first 3 weeks, like you're really you're never not being watched by a drill sergeant. So they wake you up in the morning by coming in and throwing things on the ground and yelling at you and telling you to get online in like less than 10 seconds. So you're starting every day super stressed out, and then
Just absolute cortisol spiking in the morning.
yeah, just like a huge spike. And then it's like, dude, the whole day is just going from being incredibly stressed to incredibly bored.
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over. Like you're either waiting in a line or you're being yelled at.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so you start to feel so separated. I remember the first time I stepped into like a chapel after the first week of basic training. and just like the peace.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy cow. Like, I have never felt so much relief in my life than after I stepped in that chapel.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And you like, you don't even realize how, like, in the day-to-day that peace is always there.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment where it was such a high contrast, it's like, wow, this is important. And for soldiers especially, like, I think there was one other person in my platoon of 40 people in basic training that didn't come from a broken home where their parents were divorced. So a lot of these people are coming from really rough backgrounds.
I wonder why that is. Maybe structure, probably.
Yeah, I think, like, the Army, especially in times of peace, is almost like a way for the government to add structure into society. It's like, we're going to take these people. A lot of these people were driven by purpose, and, like, they had a higher purpose. But a lot of them also were there because they literally had nowhere else to go.
Right.
Like, this was their last chance to make something of themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, coming from that kind of a stressful environment to where your home is broken, you don't have any great examples, you don't have, like, a good outlook on life, there's something that is, like, just kind of pulls those people, and like, they can learn structure, they can learn discipline, they can learn networking, and all of these different things that the Army offers.
Yeah.
And all they have to do is follow instructions. Like, there's no need to, like, go make your own way in the world. You can just sign some papers, and from day one to the last day, all you have to do is follow what somebody else tells you to.
It's a very clear path.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. That makes sense. Yeah, I guess if you've really had no guidance or path in your life, then it's like, okay, this literally is outlined for me. I can't mess it up unless I'm, do something stupid or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. That must be tough, though, because I feel like I was talking to, he's a firefighter. He came on a couple times ago or whatever. And he was sharing how in the fire department, he works with, like, a lot of the firefighters to find purpose outside of the job. And, like, because he just said people tend to get stagnant where they are, right? They start doing the job, and then they're like, well, I don't know what else to do. And he was just telling them how there are so many avenues to, like, learn inside that career. Like, you could specialize in a certain avenue, or you could, learn more about, he was even saying, like, construction, because then you know how to better fight fires, because you know how the houses are built. And I was like, I didn't even think of that, but okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting. It's like, yeah, I think a lot of people don't know exactly what to do or where to turn or where to find purpose. And so then they just kind of wander.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, sometimes I can be a little hard on the people that I went to basic training with, because it was frustrating a lot of times for a few of them. But I will say that, like, everybody that is there at least wants something more for their life. And that's something that you don't find in an everyday person. So I really respect the people that want something more for their life. They're willing to endure a lot through these trainings to go and achieve it. Some of them, like, haven't had the structure early on in their life, but they know that they want it, and that's enough to kind of get them moving and going in the right direction.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. At least they are, actively working towards it.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for, all service members, especially, like, dude, it's hard. I couldn't imagine, like, being active duty and going through, like, starting out enlisted, like, right now and trying to start a family during that period, like a private makes almost no money. Granted, like their life is kind of paid for, but like trying to think about starting a family is impossible. Like,
Right.
It'd be so hard.
No,
So,
it's definitely like they're definitely sacrificing a lot and putting a lot on the line. So, yeah, no, I think we were just talking about the fact that the type of people that sometimes are attracted to the military, like they need the type of help a chaplain can bring.
yeah.
I think that's so. What will that entail? So once you get through your master's degree, right? And do they assign you to a certain location, to like a base? Do they assign you to what? How's that work?
Yeah. So I'll be a chaplain candidate in the Idaho National Guard.
Yeah.
And essentially, like, as soon as I finish that master's program, I can do what's called assess as a captain, as a chaplain and a captain. At that point, if they accept me into active duty, you kind of go into like this pipeline. It's kind of like what I went through as a cadet, where you're just competing with all of your peers to get what you prefer. So like I could be sent to any Army base throughout the world, but I put in my preferences, like kind of like 1 through 5, and then everybody puts their preferences, and then we compete to see who gets what they want.
So what's like top dog place? Like everybody wants that.
I don't know. I think it really does vary a lot. Like kind of, if you're kind of like strategically planning your career, there are key jobs that you want. And I don't know exactly how this works with chaplains because you all kind of have the same job. But for, let's say like a general officer, like you're going to want time as a platoon leader, and then you're going to want time as an executive officer. You might want a little bit of time as like a staff in a staff position on like a command team staff. And then you're going to want time as a commander. Like all of those things are things that like everybody wants in their career, and you can only find those things in certain places at certain times.
I see.
Like it's like this huge moving puzzle. So it's not always easy to like, it's not like everybody wants this place but people want things that are going to be strategically good for their career. And the places that you think are like fantastic or amazing, like Hawaii, a lot of times those aren't like the most preferred places because from what I've heard from soldiers that have served active duty in Hawaii, like there's quite a bit of like toxic leadership.
Yeah.
So it makes it hard
Yeah.
to work in places like that. But
Interesting.
whereas and there are a couple like places that I think are harder to work in the Army, but I've never heard of anywhere that's like the Mecca. Like
Right.
everybody wants to be there. So
I'd assume with being a chaplain, it's almost more about like where can I go where I'll be. I don't want to say like networking the best, but like kind of meeting people who are. I don't want to say important because everybody's important at a certain level, but you know what I'm saying. Like places where it's going to be a very network-rich environment. I would almost think, but I don't know. I have no idea what.
yeah, I could imagine as a chaplain, like personally, what's probably gonna drive our career, like my career,
Yeah.
is one, I mean, what's going to suit my family the best.
Right,
There are
sure.
going to be seasons in life where it makes sense to be outside of the United States, and we might try to pick something in Europe or South Korea or Japan. But there are going to be a lot of seasons in life where it's not going to make sense to try to be outside of the United States. And maybe we just want to be as close to family as possible. So,
That's a good point.
you know, we kind of have to navigate all of that. There aren't a whole lot of places where I'm like, oh, I'd love to be there. I think it would be incredible to do chaplaincy for like a special forces unit or Rangers.
Do you travel with the unit? Is that how that works, or is it kind of like you're here and they know when they get back?
Special forces, I'm not sure how that works exactly. I mean, I would imagine like you're definitely not going to be like going out in the action with them.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas like back in the day, you kind of were.
Yeah.
Like chaplains in World War One were like amongst like the highest death per capita because they were always in the front line with the soldiers, you know, giving last rites, comforting the dying, trying to heal, like help people that were struggling. So it was a much more dangerous job back then. From what I hear now, probably because warfare has changed so much.
Yeah.
But chaplaincy has kind of become a much safer profession now. So
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
They're just not dropping chaplains out in the middle of the battlefield.
Dude,
and
I read those
hope
books.
for the best.
There's like, well, it's like, I don't think anybody's sending them, but you'll read these stories of chaplains that, like, it's just where they want to be. Like, they can't imagine not being in the most danger.
Right.
You know, if anybody is in any amount of danger, like, they're going to be there to help them.
Yeah.
And, like, if you want to read a great book, The Immortals, it's about, like, 4 chaplains in the Navy. Literally all of them. This will kind of ruin the book, but they're all like sailing. The ship gets struck. It's going down. Every one of those 4 chaplains could have survived. They all had a life jacket. They all were close to a boat. They all could have gotten off. Not a single one of them survived because there was always another soldier to help. All 4 of them gave away their life jacket. All 4 of them gave their spot in a like a life buoy or whatever.
Right.
And all 4 of them went down with the ship. So it's not that, because like they had every right, you know, to be on one of those safety ships, but they all forfeited that right.
Right. Because they probably want to be of the most help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been like, nowadays it's like, oh, you got Zoom or FaceTime?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can just call me from there. Yeah. No, that makes sense, so that they would be wanting to help those who are in the most need.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. That's probably why they got into it in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a calling. It's like, I think all of them realized that at that moment, their life led to that point in time where they could save this soldier's life or bring this soldier comfort. And that's all that there was to live for. So
yeah. Tell me a little bit more about morality, because I saw that on your Instagram. You're kind of doing the videos on morality.
Dude.
And I'm curious about that because, you know, that I wouldn't say that's a common, you know, I'm not on TikTok and seeing morality pop up often as on the feed. So, yeah, explain that a little bit to me.
Okay, I'll ask the question that I asked in the video, and you can give me your take on it.
All right.
So let's say you're running a race.
Yeah.
And you come in second place. And you somehow at the end of the race, you know for a fact that it wasn't your legs that slowed you down. It wasn't your heart or your lungs that slowed you down. Your body could have moved faster, but it was a moral failure that caused you to lose that race. So you didn't have, you could say like the bravery or the perseverance or the courage or whatever is a moral to you. You didn't have enough of that like moral thing to win the race. And the question is, could you have won the race if you had wanted to? So, and that kind of, it's just to introduce the question that a lot of people don't even realize they have, which is morality a skill set? Which means like you have to build up that moral trait throughout your life. And you can't just summon morality, you can't summon moral will out of nowhere. You have to build it up over time. Or is morality a choice where any time you are put in a moral position, you can make the right choice?
Right.
It's within your power. And that was, so when I first like introduced that question to another officer on a hike, like we literally debated it for hours, where to me, it didn't make sense that morality wasn't like something that you had to build up over time.
Right.
Like you just think about like these characters throughout history where they had to learn a certain like strength, a certain like character trait over time. And the other person was saying like, no, literally any time you have a moral choice in front of you, you can make the right choice. Just depends on whether you want to or not. So what's your take? What do you think?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I think for the most part, it's probably a skill-based thing. Like over time, you build up those morals. But I think it depends on the circumstance handed to you. For example, like let's go with the race. I think, and morals being, I would assume like a moral could be a different type of thing, right? Like courage or, strength or what, like, it's not necessarily like, because sometimes we think morals is like, oh, you're like a worthy person, or like you're like a high, like you're a very spiritual, more like high moral person, right?
Yeah.
At least like my mom like would use that, like she's very moral, she's very, righteous, right? But morals can be more than that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Well, what I would specify that they can't be though is, or I guess what I'm not talking about is like just like mental strength. So like I'm not talking about like mental fortitude is a moral. Specifically, it's like it has to do with morality, not just like like a strength that you have.
Okay, so just like the ability to mentally gut through something is not necessarily what you're referring to.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's tricky. I think, because I on one hand, I think primarily for most situations, it would be something that you build up over time, right? Like, like I think discipline is morality, right? Or moral, right? So, learning how to be disciplined consistently, showing up day after day. So in the race example, like, did I have the moral of discipline where I trained consistently? If I never trained, I trained once and I came to the race and I sucked it up, right? It's like, well, you didn't really build the skill set to like train through. If you'd been disciplined, you would have probably done a whole lot better. But then there are circumstances where you hear like maybe somebody wasn't a very moral individual their whole life. They're just kind of a scumbag type guy.
Yeah.
And let's use a military example, right? And they're like in the Army, and maybe because they didn't have anything going for them, they just joined or whatever. They got put into a circumstance, and maybe they're typically pretty selfish and always chose, the wrong path. But they get put in a circumstance where it's like, if they do this, they can save a ton of lives.
Yeah.
And they decide in that moment, like, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice myself. Now, was there a selfish reasoning behind that? Was it not? I don't know. But like people would say, wow, he wasn't really a great guy, but in that moment, what a sacrifice. What a moment of, true moral values, right?
Yeah.
So I think there are circumstances where it's kind of placed in your lap. Now, you could also argue that maybe he saw the examples of other people over time that influenced him, was like, so there is, watching somebody over time, that's definitely putting, there's some consistency of building that up. And so I don't know. I think in most cases, though, I would agree that it's a skill that has to be built.
So now when you kind of change the frame, so I kind of did, I changed the frame on the question and asked it again, and people got upset for different reasons than the first one. But
You're just rage baiting the internet out here.
Yeah, it was. I was kind of surprised by how mad some people got. But okay, so the other example that I used was you have somebody that knows what Epstein did,
Yeah.
and like they just don't seem to have the courage or whatever to report what they know. And then at that point, are you going to say that they don't really? Because if it's a skill set, you're saying they don't necessarily have the choice to do the right thing. Maybe they literally just don't have the courage to report what they know. And if they don't have the courage, then they just don't have it. There's no choice involved. So does that situation change things? Because if you're going to say that morality is a skill set, then you have to recognize that everybody has a limit to what they can do morally. And if we can't know what anybody's limit is, then how can we hold anybody morally accountable for anything? Whenever somebody doesn't make a moral choice, they can just say, I didn't have it in me.
Right.
I didn't have like the moral capacity to do the right thing. And I mean, you can't blame them.
Right.
You can't say, oh yeah. All you can say is, well, you didn't have it in you. There's no choice. How can I hold you accountable?
Right.
When you didn't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah. I almost think that's why the only fair system we've really come up with when it comes to judgment has been a judgment of your peers. Because you could look in that Epstein situation, you could say, well, on one hand, at just a baseline limit, knowing something about that, knowing that people were being harmed or people were being abused or whatever, and you said nothing, by association, you're guilty because you chose to basically allow hurt to be and harm to happen. You may have not participated, but you allowed it to continue, and you were aware. So from that baseline, you could say, like, yeah, that's wrong, and you didn't have the moral courage to step up, right? But that same person could argue that, well, you know what? I have my family. I have so many people that rely on me, and if I had done that, like, I would be letting them down, and I had to protect them because what if they had come after my kid? I didn't want my baby to die. And there's a lot of people in that boat, like, if you flip that script, if I'm a mom with 4 young kids, I might be really sensitive to that idea of, like, yeah, my kids, I have to be their protector. That's my moral responsibility. And so I think that's why the judgment system based off your peers is really the only fair one we've been able to come up with.
Yeah.
Because it's very perspective driven. Now, in my opinion, I think when it comes to like moral courage, the answer is they should have reported it, right? Because, and I think over time, going back to kind of your, the skill set that's built up, I think if you've had experiences in your life where that's
Wait, but look at the language that you have there. So they should have reported it. But it's not a question of should. It's a matter of could they have. If it's a skill set, there was no capacity for them to report it.
So do you mean, when you say could they have, do you mean like, did someone come to them and ask?
I'm saying like, if you believe that morality is a skill set, and so everybody has their moral limit, and that was outside of their moral limit, then you can't say they should have because it was outside of their moral limit. And so they literally could not have. It would be like saying like, you should have lifted that 500-pound weight when they're just incapable of it. So my point is, with all of that,
so how does that
say?
Sorry, go.
Yeah, go ahead.
So how does that play in then to like sin, right?
Yeah.
Because for example, that's kind of how I'll take it to kind of like a let's just take it the church standards, right? There's a lot of people that would argue that same-sex attraction isn't technically like how it's not their fault. They were born that way. But within the bounds of the church, it's considered a sin. Now, granted, they've clarified sin is sin, regardless of whether it's same-sex attraction or it's, whatever, killing somebody. That's pretty dramatic. But you get my point. Like, sin is sin, and there is how they put it. So, is it really their fault? Because one, like, so that's my question. Like, where does that...
So, there's something important to clarify there. And that is to say, the church's stance is not that same-sex attraction is a sin. It's that acting on same-sex attraction is sin.
Yeah.
So, and the difference there is, where has a choice been made? So people have things happen to them all of the time.
Yeah.
And that's outside of our control.
Yep.
My message to people is that morality is the thing that we have within our control. Like, we have like this illusion of control for everything in our life. In reality, at the end of the day, morality is the only thing that we make real choices about. And it's 100% within our control.
Yeah.
So, with that example of same-sex attraction,
Sure.
it is there's only sin to the capacity that somebody's made a choice.
Right.
If they're experiencing feelings, and it's the same for me. If I see something that makes me feel a lustful drive,
Sure.
Initially, there's no choice in that. Like, my body does that.
Right. Like,
Naturally.
if you see an attractive woman walk by, and you go, "Wow, she's really attractive. I'm kind of attracted to her." That's not necessarily a sin. It's then perpetuating that further and going, "I really want that," and then acting upon it. That then takes it to a sin.
Exactly.
Sure. Okay.
And so that the moment that you're taking something that's happened to you, and you are either fighting against it, or you are perpetuating it further, is where it becomes a choice, and that's the point at which it becomes like a sin or no sin.
Right. And in that scenario, you being married and cheating, right? Because if you saw an attractive woman, you're single, whatever, right?
Right.
Or, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. So now I do think my other thing with morality is that what you're choosing is who to be in that moment. And I don't think that. I think that with like the 10 Commandments, and I guess commandments in general, people have turned that into a moral law, but I don't know if that's what God intended with it.
How so?
Like, say for example, people think that it's a sin to lie. Have you heard like the Jew in the attic moral dilemma?
I feel like I've heard it, but not in this term, so I'm curious.
Okay, so people that say like to lie is a sin outright for sure, no matter what, then like this scenario of, okay, you're in Nazi Germany. You have a Jew that you're hiding in your attic. You know that they're going to die if they're found by the Nazis, and a Nazi comes to your door, and they knock on your door and they say, "Do you know where any Jews are? Or have you seen any Jews?" Is it a sin to lie to that officer and tell them, like, "No, I don't know"?
No, it's a moral justification, I think.
Yeah, I think like you are doing something, you are lying, but the intention there is not a bad intention, and intention is where the sin is. So it's where we're making like now people will kind of get up in arms about that, because they're like, oh, like just because somebody had good intentions doesn't make it right. And they're right in the fact that, like, yeah, you can have good intentions and you can cause a lot of damage in the world. But there's a difference between the damage that you're causing in the world and the damage that you're causing to your morality. So, like, people have good intentions, and with those good intentions, they cause damage in the world. And sometimes people have bad intentions, and with those bad intentions, they cause good in the world. They're two separate things completely. You have like the outside world, the effect, and you have like the moral choice that you're making. So I don't think that morality is like this simple, if you do this, it's bad. If you do this, it's good. Or if you don't do this, it's bad. If you don't do this, it's bad or it's good. It's like there is, there are these virtues to be. And we make these choices based on who we want to be. And at the end of the day, for me, that's being as much like Christ as possible. You know, like God is who I want to become. So anytime I'm making a choice that makes me more like God, it's a moral choice. But you can see times, you know, you can see examples all of the time where if you get caught up in like these hard and fast rules, you kind of miss the mark with morality.
Yeah.
Like that moral dilemma.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this then. So if the goal is to become more like God, and you're basing your moral compass off that, basically, right? The decisions and the intent off that. In the Bible, there's lots of stories of God wiping out, you know, populations of people. And so if somebody decides, and I guess my question comes down to, I don't want to say perspective, but people's perception. If I've somehow justified in my mind that this population, let's since we're using the Nazis and the Jews, if I'm Hitler and I've decided that wiping out the Jews is the best interest, and to my perception, like, I can justify that, you know, well, that's, you know, God wiped out lots of people, and that's okay. So, and I'm actually helping my people by, you know, doing X, Y, and Z. Where does that play into it? Do you think that in that case it's like, well, that guy's just gone down the wrong path, and truthfully, he's justifying bad choices to fit in his morality? Or is it, or how does that play in? Because I think people can justify a lot of decisions to fit what they think is their moral compass.
Well, it's interesting because you know, people will hear that, you know, morality, as soon as you take away, and I want to think that the reason why God introduced these structured rules, say the 10 Commandments, is because it's very hard for people to see morality like outside of that. And so, like, as soon as you say morality isn't about these hard rules, people say, okay, so then is it just relative? And immediately they go down this path of moral relativity. It's two different things to say, like, okay, let's say two people feel like they're being led by God. You know, a lot of people will make the argument that Hitler felt like he was a soldier for God. Right. And he was doing God's will. In that situation, I would say two things. Okay, so either Hitler is right and what he did was totally moral, and, you know, things just played out the way that they did in the world, or Hitler was, you know, completely wrong, or Hitler, I guess there's a third thing where, like, Hitler's just lying about what he feels his calling is, and he knows that he's doing evil. To me, that seems like the most logical thing. But I have to have, like, a certain level of, like, intellectual humility to recognize that I can't make that call. So I can't say that anybody's actions, like, are moral or immoral. Like, you see these situations on the news where like a father will have their daughter get raped, and the father goes and murders the man who raped his daughter. And like half the people are like, this man is a hero, and half the people are like, this man is like a vigilante, and like he shouldn't have gotten away with it.
Right.
Was it a moral decision or not? Nobody but that man and God can know. But we do have laws, and those laws aren't for moral reasons. Those laws are to keep a certain structure, a certain a certain level of clarity and structure to society. So like, I think vaguely these laws can resemble some form of morality, but that's not the point of them. It's like our laws to not murder. Yeah, like I would say pretty much all of the time, it's a safe law to say you shouldn't murder someone. But at the end of the day, murdering someone like in the street is the same action that a soldier is morally justified in doing to go and protect their country.
Right.
So it's like the action is actually the same in both of those situations. So I think a lot of soldiers, like the PTSD and the grief that they feel is because they should have been doing something that was moral when they went to war. And because of what was in their heart, it became immoral. They didn't have the intent of, they didn't have a good intent when they killed that person. They had an intent of hatred. And that eats away at their soul. Now, the person literally right next to them that did the exact same thing had a moral intention. And you know, maybe both of those soldiers are going to experience PTSD, but I think they're going to experience two different kinds of traumas. And I think trauma of the soul is a very real thing where these people are put in extremely like difficult situations and they deceive themselves into thinking that that difficult situation is a justification. And they think that it's outside of their capacity to do the right thing, but it was never outside of their capacity. They always could have made the right choice. Morality was always 100% in their control. Whether they pulled that trigger for a moral reason or an immoral reason, only they and God can know. But it's going to make all the difference for like then their own morality.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think the tough part is we have to operate as a society on a common code of conduct.
Yeah.
Because without it, things just go haywire, right? There's too many. Everybody can justify their own actions in their own way without it. And there's a lot of people who, because I was thinking the other day, I think whether you like, for the most part, maybe some people are born psychopaths and just, I don't know. I would hope not, but maybe that's the case. But, for example, I've seen a lot of people where they hate to watch a torture scene on TV. Because I think deep down, seeing that and witnessing that is like, that's wrong. Like, that's inhumane. And when, but at the same time, going back to kind of the buildup of it, I think over time you can desensitize yourself of that. And you can start to go, it's whatever. I've been a part of that for multiple times. I've seen it, I've been a part. And so you kind of grow. Now, whether they have heartburn later on or trauma or whatever, right? That's possible too. But yeah, it's interesting because I think I want to believe that there is a baseline of what is like eternal truths or eternal, like, this is what good is and this is what bad is. But it's tough because there is a lot of, it's like what things are those eternal truths versus what things are society built, expectations.
Yeah.
Because you go back 500 years, somebody marries a 14-year-old, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You do that now, totally different circumstance.
Yeah.
And that's because that's what we've decided as a society is like acceptable. And it probably is better. I would think it's better,
Yeah.
right? For a variety of reasons. But back then, not a big deal. So that's where it gets kind of messy, I think.
Yeah. Well, so it's to say that, okay, so like back to those two soldiers.
Yeah.
Neither of those soldiers, one might have been morally justified. One might have been, doing moral damage to their own soul.
Yeah.
But legally, both of those soldiers are going to see the exact same repercussions, which is nothing. Like they're gonna, as far as the legal system, as far as society is concerned, nobody else cares.
Right.
And I think that's how it should be. Like there's this separation of church and state because church and state have two separate roles in our lives.
Yeah.
It's like morality is morality. That's literally just our soul, and that's it.
Right.
Everything that we do as a society and like these kind of like fake rules and like almost just made up systems of
norms,
cultural norms. Sometimes we think we get passionate about them like they're a moral thing, but in reality they a lot of times don't have like a solid moral ground.
Yeah.
And you can see situations where like it's easy to kind of see
Blur the line a little bit.
to blur the lines.
Yeah.
Because there's just not, I think there is, as far as like God is concerned, there is that hard and fast, like good and bad. There's that good and evil. That there's that like sin and not sin.
Yeah.
But it's not like the purpose of that isn't for us to make judgments on other people. It's and that's why like in the scriptures we're warned over and over and over, don't judge other people. Like that's not your job and you're incapable of doing it.
Right.
You can try to make rules for your society to make society run as smoothly as possible and to make the most amount of people happy. But at the end of the day, it's going to fall short of what like teaching real morality can do.
Yeah.
Because I do think that like generally like society now is a more moral society, or I guess I should say it's a better society than it was 200 years ago. But I don't know necessarily if we're like a more moral people. Society's made it really easy to do good things and to not do bad things. Like there's a lot of social cost to stealing, to raping, to murdering. Like it's easy to get caught. There's not a lot of upside. Like less people are doing bad things. More people are doing good things because you can be seen by everyone around you now. Like it's easy to go on social media and say, oh, look at this good thing I'm doing. In reality, there's no moral value like to either of those things. Like we're not doing bad things, but we're not doing bad things because we're good people.
Right.
We're just doing it because that's the way society is. And I think a lot of people that we're seeing are just kind of shells of moral figures. And the only reason why a lot of people haven't done moral atrocities is because they haven't been in a position where it's a choice. But like you'll see a good example. Have you watched Beast Games?
I watched like 2 episodes.
Dude, Beast Games is such a good example of that, where like, people will go on there and like they'll claim like these like strong moral structures.
Yeah.
The moment it's like put to a test with a dollar amount, they're like, no.
They fold.
They fold. It like their morality has a a dollar amount attached to it. And what I realized is that like really what most people are trying to do, like most people don't necessarily want to do good things, but they just don't have a good enough justification to do a bad thing. And so like time and time again, like people on Beast Games, like they wouldn't do the bad thing until they hit that money amount where it was like, I'm justified in this.
Right.
Like I feel like society won't judge me for being a bad person if I do this.
Right.
Because it's just that much money. And, you know, a lot of people kind of just like threw their morality away.
Where it gets interesting in those type of shows, and Cal, can you switch this from, it's set on 4K, just make it HD. It'll take up less space and it'll keep on recording. What makes it interesting in those situations too is that depending on who the audience has decided is, so let's say, because they'll get those panels, right, where it's like 3 people are up, 1 person's going to get cut, and it's like, you can either cut this person or you can take this $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And if the person they're cutting, the viewers have decided that that person's a really awesome person, everyone's like, you're such a terrible person. I can't believe you did that to poor Johnny, who's got the amazing family and the disability dog, and he just wanted to, help his kids, and you cut him from the show for, $500 or whatever. It's usually a lot more than that. But if the person that was on the panel, like, that potentially could get cut was a terrible, like, everybody is rooting against that person.
Yeah.
Then he get, like, the guy gets offered $500, you can cut, Ben. Ben's a terrible person. Everyone in the audience hates him.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, way to go. No one liked him. Get him out of here. But in essence, that wasn't, either way, it's not the moral thing, right? Like,
Right.
The moral decision was to be a loyal teammate or whatever, right? So that's where it gets interesting, is what we decide versus what's really, and I guess that is really where, God is really the only judge that can be, because he knows both sides of the situation.
Yeah.
But how then do you think, and maybe there is no right answer here, but I'm curious your opinion on it. How do you think then as a society, because I agree, I don't necessarily think we're more moral. I think we're just less publicly immoral,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there's still plenty of atrocities that happen that people aren't seeing, right? I think of, like, you're right. Like, I don't think, well, I don't know. Theft has also become a problem too, but I agree. It's less public. But how do we as a society then, because I agree, at one stance we're told in the Bible, like, don't judge, like God is the only judge, but how do we as a society operate then in that type of circumstance?
Well, we have to just realize that, like, the laws that we create in society, what purpose they hold. So we have to recognize they are not made for a moral purpose. They're not made for the purpose of determining morality.
Right.
And then we also have to recognize that, like, because of that, they fall short in a lot of circumstances. It's like the story of, like, Les Miserables.
Right.
Like, main character, Jean Valjean.
Yep.
Like, was it justified for him to serve 20 years for stealing a loaf of bread? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
But Javert, like, justified it using morality. He said, like, this man is a bad man. He said, like, this is what I perceive to be morality. And so I'm justified in carrying out the law to, like, its furthest extent because morality is on my side. God is on my side. And, like, we have to recognize that, like, human laws fall so short of being able to do what God does.
Yeah.
And so we can form these laws to try to keep a structured society, but that's really the only purpose.
Interesting.
I think you'll see in, like, when crap hits the fan.
Yeah.
Like, right now, I would say, like, 95% of people are just, like, in this, when it comes to morality, 95% of people are just in this middle place where they're, like, good people.
Yeah.
but like not for any good reason. They just have no reason to be bad. And then as soon as something like big, as soon as crap hits the fan, like there's that big polarization.
Yeah.
And you're going to see people that seem like decent, good people are actually monsters. Like they just had no reason to be bad up to that point. But as soon as like they have a reason to be bad, like they're going to make that choice.
Is that just because it hasn't been tested, or deep down they're just selfish?
I think it's because it's purely based on the choices that they make. So they're making choices, or they will make the choice, or they do make the choice to be selfish, or to be prideful, or inhumane, or any number of these like bad character traits. But yeah, like it's that that book I was talking about, like the Immortals, like that's a really good example. Like so that ship made it like 90% of the way, totally fine. For that 95% of the way, like all of the soldiers, there was like some variation between how moral they were, but for the most part, everybody got along, everybody was fine.
Yeah.
As soon as chaos happened, as soon as like those torpedoes hit that ship and the ship was falling, people turned into either saints or monsters. And like some people were like literally just like pushing people like down, trapping people so that they could get away, stealing other people's life coats, life jackets, whereas other people like made the choice to be a moral person and like were 100% selfless.
Yeah.
So it's not always easy to see kind of like on a full scale, like society scale, where society is at.
Yeah.
Because most of society just hasn't really been tested in a long time. We've been living in relative comfort for a lot of years now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's why they say a lot about comfort's not the thing that builds character.
Yeah.
That's a pretty common phrase, but yeah, it seems like there is a lot of people who make a lot of bad choices, or maybe aren't making bad choices intentionally, but like when, and I think, that's why you hear people say like in good times, they had lots of friends, but when bad times hits, that's when they saw who their true friends were.
Yeah.
They're the ones that stuck around, the ones that.
Yeah. Or like that phrase, it's like, good times make weak men create bad times.
Yeah.
Bad times create strong men.
Yeah.
Strong men create good times.
Yeah, that whole
that
cycle of pride or whatever, cycle of whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think the solution is? Do you think it's just an acceptance? Like people just need to realize the difference and realize that there's going to be bad people and there's going to be good people, and it's going to be really hard sometimes to know who's who until things happen? Or is there an actual way to breed a more moral society?
I think the first thing is for people to recognize that like morality is a thing.
Yeah.
Morality is a thing. It's like an objective thing. And second, it is a choice. Like it is 100% a choice.
Yeah.
In as much as you have the ability to make a choice, like you have, I guess, yeah, that's just kind of just repeating itself, but it's like there's so many times where we cheat ourselves by saying like, I was just overcome by this, or like, to give an example, like when dealing with our kids, like my wife and I, it is so easy for me to just say like, oh, I'm too overwhelmed to help with the kids. And like maybe to a certain extent, like there's definitely a skill to parenting. So like it's not that there isn't a skill component at all, but I can recognize only I can recognize that there are these moments in time where it's not about skill and overwhelm and all of these things. It's about the choice that I'm making. And I'm 100% capable of making the right choice and helping. Sometimes I'm not. Like sometimes it's not a question of morality. It's like my emotional overwhelm is just like too off the charts, or like
Right.
I'm too busy with this other thing. But there are times where like it is 100% in my capacity to just make the right choice, and I justify it away because I'm like, oh no, like there are these factors that are fighting against me, and I don't really want to do it anyway. So why don't I just justify it away? And I think that people have to come to terms with the fact that when it comes to morality, they're 100% the captains of their own ship.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah. People tend to, they use their intentions almost as a crutch. You know what I'm saying? Like, that you need to check your intentions often.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's really easy to, kind of like you're saying there, right? There are some times, like, genuinely, the cup's empty, and you're like, I don't have more to give right now, and if I don't take care of myself real quick, I'm gonna be useless to you, and actually probably a hinderment because I'm probably gonna lash out or cause a problem. So it's actually better for me to just step away and then be more actually of use. But I think people use that thought process a lot, and they never check that intention, and so they cover that with the real thing of I just really don't want to do this, right?
Exactly.
And so, but yeah, I don't think people like to check their intentions often because it requires you to really, be brutal on yourself and go, am I really doing this for the right reasons? Am I really like, or am I just covering for myself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of my life, I realized that there's so much where I'm just not living intentionally. I'm just reacting and reacting and reacting and reacting.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't have the capacity to make a choice. It's just because I'm choosing not to. And I'm letting life carry me along. And a lot of people kind of need to wake up to that.
Yeah.
That life will push you along. Like, life's not going to stop lifing just because you're choosing to not make any choices.
Yeah.
But at any point, you can take the reins. You can live with intention. And a lot of people think, like, it's like weightlifting. It's like, yeah, there's a certain challenge to that. There's a certain way that's harder. But there's also a lot that makes it better and easier. So,
yeah. Let me ask you a question on this. How does that play in? And I've always been curious on this because we talk a lot about, especially if you're spiritual or if you're gospel oriented in any fashion, whether that's Christian, whether that's whatever, right? We talk a lot about God's will, versus our will, and I've always struggled with that because I think we can sometimes, once again, you got to check your intentions, right? Sometimes we can use God as a crutch.
yeah.
Or, well, I didn't really want to make the choice. I don't want to really be responsible because what if I make the wrong choice? So God, you make the choice,
Yeah.
And, but then I've also had experiences in my life where I have been actively trying to figure it out, trying to find new angles, work hard.
Can I pause you real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
Can I use the bathroom real
Yeah.
quick?
Oh yeah, please. I'm actually going to go back. We're live. And yeah, so I think my question was regarding, what was I asking? Something around
about God's will.
Yes. So I think we oftentimes, at least for me, I've struggled with the concept of taking life by the reins, making choices, choosing a direction. And sometimes there's definitely times where that needs to be applied. And I think most times, because I think it's really easy to look to God as almost a crutch for, well, I don't really want to take the risk in my life. I don't want to take the responsibility of failure, which could happen. So, God, figure it out. What do you want me to do? And I think God, honestly, a lot of times is like, well, it's your life. I want you to learn how to choose. and change and make choices. And I had this guy on a while back, and he made a good analogy. I asked him, like, why does bad things happen to good people? Because people wonder that all the time. And he's like, when we're struggling, we're going through hard things and having to figure it out, we're out of the comfort zone. He's like, I think God smiles because he sees it stretching us and he loves growth. Not that he loves our pain, but he loves that it's forcing us to grow. I thought that was a really good way he put it. But then on the flip side, I've had times in my life where I've been pushing and trying to figure it out. And I feel like I'm doing everything I can, right? And I think a lot of people feel that way. They're like, I'm trying so hard to figure it out. And nothing's working. It's just like I'm hitting roadblocks. And then I've finally given my own desires up. Been like, you know what? I can't figure this out without you, God. I don't have the answers. And at this time, I'm still praying. I'm still actively reaching out to God. But I've put it on the table. I don't have a solution. It's up to you. I've done everything I can think of. And slowly but surely, maybe not on the time I want, God actually has a plan. He's like, okay, I've got a plan. You've been on it. I'm working you through it. But there's something to be said about God's will and also submitting yourself to that. And so, I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, because that's a question I know I've wondered at times, is what's the balance between God's will and our will?
Yeah.
And finding that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially spiritually minded people, can kind of drive themselves insane with that question. And I have, for sure. I know a lot of men that have, like, literally to the point of, like, depression and just, like, these long periods of depression, just like, I just feel directionless because I don't know if it's my will or God's will. At the end of the day, I think there is, the reason why that's so difficult is because it kind of puts these two, like, it puts these two things at odds with one another. It's like, sometimes, like, God's will can be going this way and my will can be going this way. And if it clashes, like, sucks for me. Like, oh, I guess I'm just, like, off the rails now. Or sometimes, like, we're just going in opposite directions. And it's like, okay, but how can I even, like, God's never appeared to me and told me his will. So what am I supposed to figure out? And what we have to realize is that, like, there isn't these two separate things. There is, like, there is a will of goodness. What matters is that in the end, like, this whole life, all that matters is that we make the right choice. Like, at any point, we can choose in this moment to be like Christ in our fullest capacity that we have. And that's really what counts. When it comes to, like, let's say, like, a career path, it's like, what career path does God want for me?
Sure.
And what career path do I want? There's, like, I think there are, why would those two things be at odds? Really, what you're experiencing is a conflict within yourself. Like, God didn't put you in a position to want something with all of your heart and then just to take that away from you and to make you incapable or to make it not your life mission to achieve that thing. God placed us all in a position to be as fulfilled as we possibly can be.
Yeah.
So, like, whatever our mission is, whatever will make us the most deeply happy and fulfilled, we are in the position to be able to do that. When it comes to conflict within ourselves, that always comes down to virtue and the what's called like the privation or like the emptiness of that virtue.
Yeah.
So there's part of us that wants faith, and there's part of us that feels fear. Like that is the conflict. Or there's part of us that wants hope or that feels hope, and there's part of us that feels despair. Or there's part of us that wants love, and there's part of us that chooses or wants pride. And what we have to realize is that there's not like this lifelong struggle that we have to go through in order to develop the charity or the hope or the faith. All three of those things, those virtues, are choices that we can make in this moment. And the only reason why there's like this resisting, this conflict inside of ourselves is because we're not making the resolve. Like at any point, you can make the resolve, and all of that conflict like disappears. But it comes at the cost of whatever fear you have. Like you have to let it go.
Right.
Whatever despair you have, whatever pride you have to let it go. And that is the hard part. But it's only as hard as making a choice is.
Right.
Like there are two buttons in front of you, and you can press one or you can press the other. It's never going to be harder to press one button or to press the other. Like the choice, it's not actually harder to make a choice. We're just resisting. So for me, there are so many times where like I've been in the wrong, like when I was doing sales. It was a fantastic job, working with family that I loved, working with people that I loved, building a good life for my family. And yet it just wasn't where I was supposed to be. And I knew that I was going to be more fulfilled somewhere else.
Yeah.
At any point, I could have just, like, I knew what the right answer was, but I needed something to justify that to myself.
Yeah.
So instead of just like pulling the plug when I should have and just going a different direction, I had to wait for this Army training so that I could justify moving along from that job. And if there's ever like these long standing moments of conflict within yourself, like you kind of have to just realize like all I'm waiting for is a justification to make the choice that I know is right. But I don't have to wait for that justification. I can just choose to make the right choice at any point. If you want to wait for the justification, like fine. Just wait for the justification. But realize that like life is going to suck until that justification comes along, and maybe it never comes along, and maybe your life just keeps on sucking because your justifications aren't within your control. But that's been my experience, and like I cannot tell you the amount of sleepless nights and just like emotionally restless days that I just felt so angry because I thought that there was this conflict between my will and God's will, and there never was. I just didn't want to do what I knew I needed to.
Interesting. Yeah. So do you think that's why a lot of times when it comes to this challenge of the conflicting wills, as we're just kind of describing, that more often than not you're told to choose, take action, and you'll find out real quick which one was the right choice? Because in my opinion, that would lean more into what you're saying, which is, because I'm thinking about the individual who maybe it is a close call on the decision. Like deep down, you're like, oh, this probably is a better choice maybe, but this one's also pretty good too, and I don't really know. And so a lot of times it's like, well, just choose. And usually most choices are not, you can adapt to most choices made.
Yeah, you realize there have been times where like you make a choice and then you go down a path for like a little while and you just realize like that actually wasn't even a viable path.
Right.
I thought it was and it wasn't. So like now the path is even more obvious over here. Or I think a lot of times when that happens, it's like the choice doesn't actually matter.
Yeah.
Like we think it does and we want it to matter, but like either way, the end result is the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think there's a lot more things we get hung up on when it's really being able to be decisive. It's probably one of the better skills to learn, because if you can make a decision quickly, you can adapt quickly, and maybe it's the right choice and you just keep moving forward, and if it's not, you adapt and change it to what it should be. But I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
I'm pounding you a question for almost 2 hours. So
Yeah.
If there's one piece of advice, especially from the perspective of soon to be chaplain, right, within the next however long,
Yeah.
what advice would you give? And I get it, like you're still learning, you're still understanding things as well, and obviously we'll have to get you on when you're actually a chaplain, because then you'll have even more knowledge. But from your current perspective, what would be the one piece of advice? If you could single it down to one, I know that's a tough one, but what would be one piece of advice you would give your younger self coming up, to guide him along the way, if you could go back in a time machine and give him advice?
That is a good question. I think it would be to really the biggest thing that I think I've ruined my life with, and granted, I have an incredible life, but the biggest ruiner of my life is distraction. Like, I am consumed, like growing up, consumed by distractions all of the time. Like, I think it's because I have like a very, like I tend to just overthink a lot. And so in order to not overthink, I just want my mind occupied by something.
Yeah.
And when I like force myself outside of like from distractions, like things just open up. And I find like I understand a little bit more about who I am. I don't think that enough young people like know who they are.
Yeah.
Or what they want. They just don't know enough about themselves. And the only significant block to people knowing who they are distractions. Like, you just have to cut them out at some point.
Yeah.
If you find yourself like going through every day with like earbuds in your ear, listening from thing to thing, you're always like, I would tell myself, I'm learning something.
Right.
I would go from learning about this to learning about this to learning about this to learning about this. At the end of the day, I use 5% of it. The purpose wasn't really to learn about anything. It was just to distract myself from myself. And I lost a lot of years that I could have been learning about myself because I was like too busy distracting myself. So I think that would be it.
Yeah, I like that. I think a lot of people struggle with that. And the world's only becoming more distracting. It's giving us more reasons to lose focus.
Yeah.
So I think that's a timely piece of advice. So,
Yeah.
Kayam, it's been awesome.
Dude.
It's been a pleasure having you on. Where can people find your stuff? Because if they wanna be rage baited by questions of morality, where can they find?
Yeah. Follow me on Instagram. Haim Zuniga. Nobody else in the world has my name, so
That's true. I've never met a
pretty
guy.
easy to find. So yeah. And then I think that's it. I'm not really a public figure yet, but one day I'll be like Matty McCurdy.
Well, hopefully more than that. Hopefully more. It'll be more popular because you got actual good advice. So, Chaim, it's been great. Thanks for coming on, and we'll have to do it again.
Okay.
All right, awesome. Thanks, everybody.